My daughter-in-law shrieked, "Pay the rent or get out, old woman." My son just stood there staring, so I quietly gathered my things and sold a house that very day. I didn't realize it was actually mine. The next morning, the new owners showed up with eviction papers. My son called screaming, "Why are you doing this to my life? Where are you watching us from today?" Go ahead, drop your current location in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. But let me tell you how we arrived at this, shall we say, eye-opening moment. It all started 6 months ago when my husband, Frank, died from a sudden massive heart attack. 42 years of marriage vanished in an ambulance that arrived way too late. "Mom, you can't possibly stay in that huge house all by yourself," my son David told me the moment we got back from the funeral. He spoke as if I were some feeble, decrepit senior, instead of a 54-year-old woman who had raised 3 kids and managed all the family finances for decades. His wife, Vanessa, nodded vigorously from the couch, holding my 2-year-old grandson, Max, like a shield. "It's for the best, Carol. We'll take care of you. Take care of me." As if I were a stray dog needing adoption. "I don't need to be taken care of," I told them. "I am perfectly capable of—" "Mom," David cut me off with that condescending voice he'd perfected since he got married. "Be realistic. This house is too much for you. The stairs, the yard, the maintenance." What he didn't tell me then, but what I'd discover later, was that he and Vanessa had already made plans. Big plans that required a big house. And my house was absolutely perfect. The problem was they believed the house belonged to David. Frank had always handled the paperwork. He was always the one who talked to the lawyers and signed the documents. In my son's mind, he was the natural heir to everything. How wrong he was. But that revelation would have to wait a few more months. First, I had to live through my own version of domestic hell. "Carol, could you do the dishes? Vanessa is just too worn out with the baby." That was the third time that week David had asked me to do household chores, as if the fact that Vanessa had a toddler exempted her from all domestic responsibility. But Max was 2, not 2 months old. "Of course," I replied, because I still believed I was a grateful guest in my son's house. Grateful guest. I laugh at my own naivete now. Vanessa was in the living room watching TV and eating chocolates. Little Max was playing on the floor with his toys, completely ignored. I walked over and knelt down to give him a kiss. "No, don't spoil him so much," Vanessa yelled from the couch. "He's already way too much trouble." Trouble. A 2-year-old who barely received any attention from his parents. "I'm just giving my grandson a kiss," I said calmly. "You're too permissive. That's why David turned out so dependent." Dependent. My son, who had worked since he was 16. He graduated as an engineer and held a stable job. But according to his wife, it was my fault that he loved his mother. That was the first clue about where this was all headed. 2 weeks later, I came home after grocery shopping to find my belongings moved. My clothes had been reorganized in the closet. My books shifted to different shelves. "Oh yeah," Vanessa said when I asked. "We needed space for Max's things. Hope you don't mind." I did mind. It was my bedroom, in my house, with my things. But I didn't say anything because I still didn't know it was my house. "Also," Vanessa continued, examining her freshly painted nails, "we need you to help out with expenses. Groceries, utilities, internet, everything's so expensive." Expenses in my own house. "How much do you need?" I asked. $500 a month would be good, to start. To start, as if it were the first payment of many. That night, when David came home from work, I asked him about the financial arrangement. "It's fair, Mom. We all contribute here." We all. As if we were roommates instead of family. As if this weren't the house where I had raised him, where I had changed his diapers and soothed his nightmares. But I paid because I thought I was living in my son's house, and a grateful mother pays her share. How foolish I was. The first month of living with David and Vanessa was like walking on eggshells. Every comment had a double meaning. Every favor turned into an obligation. Every loving gesture toward my grandson was interpreted as interference. "Carol, could you not use the air conditioning so much? The electric bill is coming in super high," Vanessa told me on a particularly sweltering Tuesday. This was August in Phoenix. The thermometer was hitting 115 degrees Fahrenheit, but apparently my comfort was negotiable. "Also," she added, without looking up from her phone, My friend Sarah is going to come stay with us for a few weeks. She needs a place while she finds an apartment. My opinion was not requested. Sarah turned out to be a 30-year-old woman who had lost her job and her apartment for reasons that were never clearly explained. What was clear was that she had no intention of looking for work while she was in my house. She's just really depressed, Vanessa explained, when I asked why Sarah spent all day watching Netflix in my living room. She needs time to heal. Heal. While eating my food, using my electricity, and occupying my sofa. But what really set me off was when I arrived home from the store one afternoon and found Sarah in my bedroom, using my computer. "Oh, hey, Carol," she said without the slightest shame. "Vanessa told me I could use her laptop to look for work." My laptop for work she clearly wasn't looking for, considering she had Facebook open. "I need my computer," I said firmly. "Oh, just a little longer. I'm in the middle of something important." Something important turned out to be chatting with a man on a dating app. That night, I confronted David. "Your wife can't invite people to live here without consulting us." "Mom, it's just temporary. Sarah is like a sister to Vanessa. And I am your mother. Doesn't that count for anything?" David sighed with that expression of forced patience he'd perfected. "You're being overdramatic. It's just one more person." One more person who paid nothing, contributed nothing, and treated my house like a personal hotel. But the worst was yet to come. 2 days later, Vanessa informed me that she had invited her sister Lily to stay too, just until she finishes her college semester. "How long is that?" I asked. 4 months, maybe 5. 5 months, in my house without consulting me. "Plus," Vanessa continued, "we need you to contribute more to the expenses. With more people, everything costs more. More money, for the privilege of being invaded in my own house." "How much more?" $1,000 a month would be perfect. Perfect for her, maybe. That night, as I washed the dishes of 5 people who hadn't even thanked me for dinner, I realized something. I wasn't a guest in this house. I was the maid who was also paying for the privilege of serving. Lily arrived on a Friday night with enough luggage for an army. She was a 20-year-old with the same attitude as Vanessa. The world owed her everything. "Hi, Grandma Carol," she said to me, even though she wasn't my granddaughter. "Vanessa told me you have super fast Wi-Fi. What's the password?" She hadn't even put her bags down. In less than a week, my house had turned into a hostel for broke 20-somethings. Lily was studying communications, which apparently meant doing video projects at 2 in the morning with the music blaring. "It's for college," she explained when I complained. "It's important, important, as if my 8 hours of sleep weren't." Sarah had abandoned all pretense of looking for work and was now dedicated to giving life advice on TikTok from my couch. "It's my new venture," she told Vanessa. "I'm going to be a wellness influencer." Wellness. From my couch, eating my groceries, using my electricity. And David? David had emotionally checked out. He came home from work, ate, watched TV, and went to sleep. When I tried to talk to him about the situation, he told me I was overreacting. "It's only a few more weeks, Mom." A few weeks. We had been doing this for 2 months. The last straw came on a Tuesday morning. I got up early, as always, to make coffee. I found the kitchen an absolute disaster. Dirty dishes in the sink. Food remnants on the stove, the counter stained with what looked like sauce. There was a note on the table. "Carol, could you clean this up? We had a little get-together last night. Thanks." Vanessa. A little get-together. In my house. Without telling me. And I was supposed to clean it up. As I scrubbed dishes I hadn't dirtied, I remembered something Frank had told me shortly before he died. We were organizing important papers, and he had insisted that I understand where everything was. "Carol, look," he had said, pointing to a blue folder on his desk. "Here are all the house deeds. Everything is in your name since we refinanced 5 years ago. If anything happens to me, it's important that you know." The deeds. Everything in my name. Right then, cleaning up Vanessa's little party mess, those words took on a completely new meaning. I walked over to Frank's desk and pulled out the blue folder. There they were, all the official papers. Carol Susan Johnson, sole owner of the property at 1247 Oak Avenue, Phoenix, Arizona. My house, not David's house, my house. And I had been paying rent to live on my own property. I closed the folder and smiled for the first time in months. Suddenly, I had options I hadn't known existed. I didn't tell anyone about my discovery. Instead, I decided to observe. For the first time in months, I paid real attention to the conversations between David and Vanessa. Once we have the house to ourselves, Vanessa told her sister that night, thinking I couldn't hear from the kitchen. We're remodeling the entire kitchen. That style is so dated. That dated style was the result of the years of saving by Frank and me to buy quality appliances. And the master suite? Lily asked. That too. We're tearing out that wall and making a little spa area. We've been saving up for the remodel. Saving up. With the money I gave them every month, no doubt. When is Carol leaving? Sarah asked from the couch. Soon, Vanessa replied. David's looking at senior living communities, something small and manageable for her. A senior living community for a 54-year-old woman. It's for the best, Vanessa continued. That way she can be with people her own age and we can get on with our lives. Our lives, in my house. The next day, while they were out, I went through Frank's papers more carefully. I found something interesting. A life insurance policy I had completely forgotten about. $500,000, also in my name. $500,000 that David probably didn't know existed. I also found the refinancing papers Frank had mentioned. Everything was clear. When we refinanced the house 5 years ago, Frank insisted everything be solely in my name, just in case, as if he knew I would need this independence someday. That afternoon, when David arrived home from work, I decided to test the waters. Son, I've been thinking about what you said about finding an apartment for me. His eyes lit up. Really, Mom? That's great. I think you'll be much happier in a place of your own. A place of my own, as if this house wasn't mine. I've seen some nice places, he continued. There's a great senior complex nearby. Activities, transportation, even a nurse on site if you need it. Nurse. For a woman who ran 3 miles every morning. How soon do you think I could move? I asked. Well, we could start looking this weekend. If we find something you like, you could be settled in a month. A month. They were in a real hurry to get rid of me. And what would happen with this house? Don't worry about that, Mom. We'll take care of everything. The payments, the maintenance, everything. The payments. On the house that was already mine. How considerate. That night, I called my friend Rose, the only person I fully trusted. Rose, I need a favor. Do you know a good real estate lawyer? Why do you need a lawyer, Carol? Aren't you living with David? Exactly. I need him to sell my house. The lawyer Rose recommended was an older man named Michael Sterling. He had a small but efficient office and 30 years of experience in real estate. Mrs. Johnson, he said after reviewing my documents, this is very clear. You are the sole owner of this property. You can sell it whenever you like. How fast could the process be? If we find the right buyer, we could close in 3 weeks. I have clients looking for houses in the area. May I ask why the rush? I explained the situation. Michael listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes. I understand, he finally said. Does your son know you are the owner? Apparently not. Michael leaned back in his chair. Mrs. Johnson, I have to ask, are you sure you want to do this? Selling the house your son lives in can cause significant family problems. The family problems already exist, Mr. Sterling. Only now I have a solution. For the next few days, I lived a double life. By day, I was the submissive Carol who washed dishes and paid bills. In the afternoons, when everyone was busy, I slipped out to meet with real estate agents. The house was appraised at $450,000, more than I expected. It's a very attractive property, the agent Patty Miller told me. Excellent location, well-maintained, nice garden. We won't have any trouble selling it. How soon? I have a couple who has been looking in this area for months. I can show it to them tomorrow if you want. Perfect. That night at dinner, Vanessa announced her most recent plans. Carol, we need to talk about house rules while you're here. Rules in my own house. Since there are more of us now, we need to organize better. I've made a list. She pulled out a sheet of paper and began to read. First, no TV in the living room after 9 p.m. That's family time for David and me. My TV in my living room. Prohibited time for me. Second, grocery shopping will be done from this list only. No extra expenses. My money for food she chose. Third, the house phone is for emergency only. No long calls to your friends. My phone, restrictions on my calls. And what if I don't agree with these rules? I asked. Vanessa looked at me as if I were a rebellious child. Carol, these are the house rules. If you don't like them, you can find somewhere else to live. Somewhere else to live. In my own house. I understand, I said calmly. And I understood perfectly. I understood that the time to act had arrived. The next day, the couple came to see the house while David was at work and Vanessa was out with her friends. They loved it. They made an immediate offer. $430,000 cash, closing in 2 weeks. I accept, I told them without hesitation. I had 2 weeks to plan my exit, and I had a feeling they were going to be the most interesting 2 weeks of my life. The following days were surreal. Every morning I woke up knowing I had sold the house, but watched David and Vanessa make plans for our house, as if nothing had changed. I've been looking at ideas on Pinterest for the bathroom remodel, Vanessa told Lily over breakfast. I want everything in white marble. White marble. With money they didn't have, in a house that wasn't theirs. Have you found an apartment for Carol yet? Sarah asked. David is going to look at some this weekend, Vanessa replied. There's one that looks perfect, small, secure, close to a health center. Health center. As if I were an invalid. The best part is it includes cleaning and meals, Vanessa continued. That way Carol won't have to worry about anything. Cleaning and meals, like a nursing home. Meanwhile, I was busy with the preparations for my new life. I found a beautiful apartment in Scottsdale, near Rose. 2 bedrooms, a balcony with a mountain view, a pool, a gym. Everything a 54-year-old woman could want. I also opened a new bank account and transferred Frank's life insurance money. $500,000 plus the $430,000 from the house sale. Almost $1 million to start my new life. A new life that my relatives had made possible with their greed and disrespect. On Friday night, 5 days before the closing, Vanessa organized another one of her little get-togethers. This time she bothered to let me know. Carol, we're having some friends over tonight. Could you stay in your room? We're going to be talking about young women stuff. Young women stuff. As if at 54 I were a fading relic. Of course, I said. I won't bother you. From my room, I could hear their conversations. They talked about men, about jobs they didn't have, about plans that required money they hadn't earned, and inevitably, about me. David says his mom is moving out soon, I heard one of the friends say. Yes, finally, Vanessa replied. It's awkward having an older person in the house. She doesn't understand the privacy young couples need. Older person. Privacy that they had completely destroyed by turning my house into a hostel. And what are you going to do with her room? We're turning it into an office for my online business, Vanessa said. What online business? The woman hadn't worked a day since I met her. We're also going to remodel the whole kitchen. Those cabinets are hideous. Those cabinets that Frank and I had chosen so carefully 10 years ago. It was at that moment I made my final decision. I had considered telling them about the sale before the closing, giving them time to process the information. But listening to them plan the destruction of my marriage memories, I decided they deserved exactly the surprise they were going to get. On Monday, I called the lawyer. Mr. Sterling, I want to accelerate the closing. Is it possible to do it tomorrow? I can try. Any particular reason? Let's just say circumstances have changed. Understood. Let me make some calls. 2 hours later, he called me back. Mrs. Johnson, we're in luck. The buyers can close tomorrow at 3 p.m. Are you sure? Completely sure. And your family? They'll know tomorrow evening. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Tomorrow would be the first day of the rest of my life. Tuesday dawned clear and warm. I woke up early, as always, but this time not to make breakfast for 5 people. This time to pack my most important belongings. I had hired a moving company for 3 p.m. right after the closing. Everything was perfectly coordinated. David went to work as usual, having no idea it would be the last time he walked out of his house as an assumed owner. Vanessa, Lily, and Sarah slept late, as always. At 10 a.m., the moving company appraisers arrived to give the final quote. We had to do everything quietly so as not to wake the house princesses. Is all this going today? The supervisor asked, looking at the list. Everything, I confirmed, except what's marked to leave. What was marked to leave were basically the furniture pieces David and Vanessa had brought when they moved in. Their bed, their TV, their dishes, their things in my house. At noon, I went to Mr. Sterling's office to review all the papers one last time. Mrs. Johnson, he said, once we sign these documents, there's no turning back. Your house will officially belong to the Johnsons. I understand perfectly. And are you sure you don't want to inform your family beforehand? Mr. Sterling, my family made decisions about my life without consulting me. It's time for me to do the same. I signed all the documents. The feeling was liberating, like taking off shoes that have been pinching all day. At 1 p.m., I met with the new owners of the house. The Johnsons were a young professional couple, both doctors who had been looking for a house in the area for months. Mrs. Johnson, Dr. Johnson told me, are you sure you don't need more time to move? I don't need more time, I assured them. In fact, I'm looking forward to starting my new life. I handed them the keys and the official documents. They handed me the certified check for $430,000. Just then, Vanessa came out of the house to go to her car. She froze when she saw the couple with documents and keys. What is going on here? She asked. Vanessa, I said calmly, I want to introduce you to the new owners of the house, the Doctors Johnson. Vanessa's face went through a variety of expressions, confusion, disbelief, and finally pure panic. New owners? What are you talking about? I've sold a house, I explained. The closing was this afternoon. That's impossible. This is David's house. Actually, Dr. Johnson intervened, consulting his documents. According to the deed, the house belonged to Mrs. Carol Susan Johnson, and now it belongs to us. Vanessa stared at me as if I were a stranger. Carol, what have you done? I've exercised my rights as the owner of my own house. But we live here. We have plans. David is on his way home from work. And you have until noon tomorrow to move out, Dr. Johnson said firmly. After that, you will legally be trespassing. Just then, the moving truck arrived. It was huge, and the workers began efficiently removing my furniture with military precision. Vanessa stood paralyzed in the driveway like a pillar of salt. Carol, stop this immediately, she screamed when she saw my sofa coming out. You can't do this. Actually, I can, I replied while supervising the packing of my books. It's my house, my furniture, my decision. But David, where are we going to live? That's not my problem, Vanessa. Lily and Sarah rushed out of the house, hearing the commotion. What's happening? Lily asked. Your crazy sister-in-law sold the house. Vanessa shrieked. I'm not crazy, I said calmly. I'm sane for the first time in months. The Johnsons watched everything from a safe distance. They obviously hadn't expected this family drama with their purchase. Mrs. Johnson, Dr. Johnson said to me, do you need us to call the police? I don't think that will be necessary, I replied. Just frustrated people discovering the actions have consequences. Vanessa pulled out her phone and called David. I could hear her side of the conversation. David, you have to come home immediately. Your mother went crazy. She sold the house. There's a moving truck. There are people who say they're the new owners. A pause. I'm not overreacting. Come now. She hung up and looked at me with pure hatred. David is on his way. He's going to stop this madness. David can't stop anything, I informed her. The sale is legal and final. This is revenge. You're getting revenge because we set rules. Rules. As if paying rent in my own house and being treated like a maid were reasonable rules. 20 minutes later, David arrived, driving like a maniac. He jumped out of the car and ran toward me. Mom, what the heck is going on here? David, I said calmly, I've sold my house. Your house? This is my house, the family home. You can't sell it without consulting me. I pulled out the documents Mr. Sterling had given me. According to the legal deed, this house has been mine since the refinancing 5 years ago. Your father insisted it be solely in my name. David read the papers, his face gradually draining of color. But I thought. You thought wrong, I said simply. But we made plans, investments, the remodel money. What remodel money, David? The money I've been giving you every month? That money was for household expenses. It was my money paying rent to live in my own house, something that ends today. The movers continued working, ignoring the family drama. Professionals? Mom, David changed his strategy. We can fix this. We can talk to the buyers, explain there was a misunderstanding. There was no misunderstanding, David. I made an informed decision about my property. But we're your family. Family, I laughed. But there was no humor in it. The family that imposed rules on me in my own house, the family that treated me like a maid, the family that planned to put me in assisted living. David fell silent. He knew exactly what I was talking about. Where are you going to live? He finally asked. In a beautiful apartment in Scottsdale. Just me. With my own rules. The workers finished loading the truck. My 40-year life fit into one moving truck, but it felt like pure freedom. Dr. Johnson, I said, the house is yours. The keys are on the kitchen table. Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. We hope to be very happy here. I got into my car and started the engine. In the rear-view mirror, I could see David, Vanessa, Lily, and Sarah standing in the yard that was no longer theirs, surrounded by the few possessions that actually belonged to them. My phone rang before I reached the corner. Mom, get back here immediately, David screamed into the phone. You have to fix this. I parked on the corner and answered calmly. There's nothing to fix, David. Everything is exactly as it should be. The new owners are kicking us out. They say we have to leave tomorrow. That's correct. You don't live there anymore. But where are we going to go? I don't know, David, but I'm sure you'll figure something out. After all, you're an adult man with a stable job. Mom, this is ridiculous. We're family. Family members respect each other, David. They take care of each other. They don't take advantage. We were taking care of you. Taking care of me? Charging me rent to live in my own house is taking care of me. Treating me like a maid is taking care of me. Planning to put me in assisted living is taking care of me. Silence on the other end. David, I continued, for months, you made decisions about my life without consulting me. Now it's my turn. But the money, what are we going to do without your financial help? There it was, the real concern, not my well-being, not our relationship, the money. You're going to do what all responsible adults do, work and pay your own bills. Mom, please, we can start over, we can change. David, you had months to change. Instead, you made it worse. I hung up the phone. 2 hours later, I was in my new apartment in Scottsdale. The place was beautiful. Large windows, modern kitchen, balcony with a view of the mountains. For the first time in months, I sat in complete silence. My silence, my peace. Rose arrived that night with a bottle of sparkling wine. Carol, how do you feel? Free, I replied honestly. Free for the first time since Frank died. Don't you feel bad about David? I feel bad about the man he became, but I don't feel bad about teaching him that actions have consequences. My phone kept ringing all night. David, Vanessa, even Lily and Sarah called to explain why I should reconsider my decision. I ignored them all. The next day, Mr. Sterling called me. Mrs. Johnson, your son came to my office this morning asking if he could undo the sale. I explained that it's impossible. How did he take the news? Like someone who finally understands that there are consequences for treating people badly. That afternoon, while organizing my books in my new home, I reflected on the last few months. Frank had always told me I was stronger than I thought. Now I had finally proven it. My phone rang. David again. What do you want, David? Mom. His voice sounded different, tired, defeated. We found an apartment, small, but it's what we can afford. I'm glad to hear that. Can we come visit you sometime? When you learn to treat me with respect, you are welcome. And the money, the monthly support? It's over, David, permanently. How are we going to survive? The way everyone else survives, by working. After hanging up, I went out onto the balcony and looked at the mountains in the distance. The sun was setting, painting the sky pink and orange. I was 54 years old, so almost $1 million in the bank. A beautiful apartment and something I hadn't had in months, self-respect. Frank would have been proud, and for the first time since his death, I was proud of myself too. As for David and Vanessa, well, some people learn the easy way, others learn the hard way, and some people just learn, or don't learn. But that was no longer my problem. My new life had begun.